At ForeFront, our mission is to get your frontline workers thinking and acting like business owners so they can drive major improvements in company performance. But a lot of clients ask us, how do we do it? It comes down to 3 basic stages: trust, tools, and traction. Let's start with trust.
So I showed up on one site, and we were the 9th group in there in 8 years. Heavily unionized, tough environment, not a window in the facility, because the owners didn't want the guys looking out. They wanted them all looking in. It was so hard to get traction because they had seen it and heard it from everyone before. And so I'd learned that that one of the union reps was working night shift. I bought a couple coffees and bought a couple muffins and showed up and sat with him in his booth from 2 a.m. to 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. He told me his stories, where he was from. He was from Stelco Steel and what he had done and what his visions were of the future and what he thought the plant could be and how it could be. That's where we work. We work in the control rooms in the booths at 2 a.m. if that's what's required. Talk to the guys, not in a meeting room, but one-on-one. Because that's when you develop that kind of trust. That's when you can start moving forward. That's why I don't get organizations that do assessments. Because if you come in and do an assessment, you're assessing people. Your goal is, when you do an assessment, your goal is to point out things that people are doing wrong. How do you start a trusting relationship by pointing out things that people are doing wrong? It doesn't work. In a good coaching relationship, it doesn't matter where people are. Your goal is to make them better. And it doesn't matter if they're 9.9 out of 10. Your goal is to help them achieve that last 0.1. Or if they're 2 on 10. Doesn't matter. Your goal is now to help them become a 3 or a 4 or 5.
Once the trust is solid, we start layering on tools.
When leaders give employees a target, it tends to come off as a threat. If you don't do this level, I'll be disappointed, or you'll be disciplined, or you won't be meeting the standard. It's a threat. But if an employee comes up with a target, then it's a challenge. They come up with a target which they're comfortable they can hit. And when they hit, they feel good about it. The next thing they're going to do is raise that target themselves, because they will keep seeking the reward of hitting the target. It's remarkable how fast they begin to set targets that are far beyond what a manager would have put in place in the first place. Being a frontline leader in an organization is a really tough job, because when you're the frontline leader, you get a lot of demands from all the managers ahead of you, and you have to, in some sense, babysit all the folks below you. You become an intermediary. You get all the headaches from the guys coming up, and you get all the pressures from the managers coming down, and you got to deal with that. And few leaders are really equipped to deal with that. They really don't know what their job is. I heard once someone said that to be a frontline leader, you either have to be a dictator or a psychologist. And I'm not trained as either, or I don't want to be either. And I'm sympathetic. We have a tool called active supervision. And what active supervision does is it gives a mechanism for leaders, a tool for leaders to rely on their day-to-day activities. Who should I be seeing? What should I be talking about? How should I be doing that? So we get them out of the bureaucracy of their job and the administration of the job, which they still have to do. And we teach them how to be effective, active leaders on the floor with their guys. Few frontline leaders have actually ever been taught how to do that. Few people understand their impact on the organization. I remember a few years ago, I was facilitating a meeting after an electrical storm that had knocked down a whole bunch of the client's wells. And I'd asked them at the get-go, how much do you think the organization lost because of that? And there were a bunch of guesses. And most of the guesses were the number of barrels that were lost per well times the number of wells times $60 a barrel. But that was really only a fraction of what it cost. Few people realized how much it cost to turn on the wells, how many belts had been burnt off as a cause of it, how many extra resources we need, what the profile of that well would look like in the long run with the lost production, the impact on the capital cost. In fact, we brought it right down to the share value, what that electrical storm cost on the share value of every person sitting in the room. And everyone was absolutely astounded at the size of that number. And they left with a whole new respect of the importance of keeping the wells running and what we could do to prevent electrical storms from knocking out wells in the future.
Once the tools are in place, we move into the traction stage.
So when people start doing better, individually they do better, and they're getting better and better as they're going along, you actually create a whole bunch of individual silos of greatness. That's what happens. But soon they realize that if they want to go even beyond, then they have to rely on those around them, that they can't do it individually. So the irony is when you have a bunch of individuals that each want to be great, you actually create teamwork because they realize they need to rely on each other. It sounds like a paradox, but it isn't. By getting individuals each wanting to be great, you're going to create a really great team. Some of the things that we've seen guys do is absolutely remarkable. I've seen a guy modify a fish finder to figure out how much sludge is in a tank before a shutdown, a job that's always been problematic and difficult and created a lot of uncertainty. Why and how he figured it out, I don't know. I've had people swear to me that it's impossible to do it, except for I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen people put fans up on lines to find bad product. I've seen people move a photo eye 4 feet, which solved literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of downtime because it just made more sense to catch the error 4 feet sooner than where it was normally being caught. The innovation that we've seen is remarkable, and it's endless. And people are always surprised. It never surprises me to see the innovation anymore, but how creative the innovation is always surprises me. I've seen guys literally save $1 million because of they've changed the way that they're permitting their trucks. An hourly guy thinking and acting like a business owner.
ForeFront, helping frontline workers think like business owners. Get in touch with us today to see how we can help you.